Good morning, folks. It's 7:02 a.m. on the 11th day, 5th month, 2024. And I'm looking at here is a moment of impact upon our magnetosphere of a solar mass ejection from the sun. You'll see how the protons interact with the planet. You'll see how our magnetosphere, through various flux lines or lines of magnetic individual strains, if you will, that we see when we would pour iron filings and if you did the experiments when you was in school of put a magnet under a piece of paper over it, pour the iron filings on it, and see the magnetic flux lines. See right there. There is a moment of impact. Now you'll watch how the magnetosphere itself protects the planet. It does a really good job. It compresses, and as these lines compress, they actually repel stronger. Okay, so to see it dip in toward the planet is necessary. Now, if they was running CERN at the time, whatever side, if like say CERN was here, you'd see a pull towards it. If they running any of the large magnetic devices, will definitely pull down more of the proton flux or the upticked wind of solar wind. It's everything's acting normal, and that was a big one. That was a big blast. I've got quite a few things like that to show you guys. See if we can get it back here. Yeah, I've got lots of graphs here that I can do. I can show you another impact, and I'll talk about the basic definitions of things because that's important. Like, what is proton flux? Flux itself is the change of fluids or particles or something going past a fixed point in a certain amount of time. Like how many of them are. How many protons were thrown off the sun or positively charged electron particles. It was a big hit, but the magnetosphere stayed intact. It did its job. One's showing it from the equator, one's showing it from the moon side. So you can see how the backside itself trails the particles out into space and how that stays intact. And I showed you it from many angles, and this will be another moment of impact, you'll see. And this is all just densities. You are my density. This one also is very dramatic. That's a moment of impact of the incoming meeting the magnetosphere itself and the magnetosphere doing its job. Don't be fearing things, and there's whole businesses set up to warn about when such an impact will occur because they can affect electronics. They can, as the protons go through the wires that are hanging around it, and even between the poles, they can induce a voltage. So in the UK and places like that, you'd unplug your appliances to save them on days like today because the electrical system is shit. It's the only thing it's good at is generating a bill, right? So there was a few impacts, as you can see here. It's an ongoing, just an increase in the proton flux and the solar wind. We do have a Earth-facing coronal hole, which is an area of the sun that's cooler, and it also forms a gap. Will go in the magnetosphere of the sun. This is a picture of they're saying is coronal mass ejection is possible. You can't predict those things. You can show the conditions that are right for a filament on a sun that's going like this. If this was the sun and there's a filament and then going millions of miles to another spot on the sun where its magnetic loop is going on from the internals that'll go on. And your Earth should be like this, but sometimes it's drawn down towards certain objects that people do experiments with, with psychotrons, magnetrons, trons in general, the whole trons of it all. And this is a great site for information. I'm not going to go with that one. This one here. This is the LESCO image that I just showed you guys of the sun itself. Things come off of this page too. This is different imagery. This is the X-ray from LESCO C3 satellite X-ray detector of the moment the X-ray interfered with the chip. then you'll see the ejection. Always the X-ray first, because it's traveling at the speed of light, pretty much. Wow. And then all that went out into space as proton flux or uptick solar wind, and then that'll interact with every planetary body, including seeing auroras on the outer planets. Are going to be very mostly passable because of this events here like this. So whatever planets are, especially on toward that direction, wherever the planets are like that and that, those will be planetary bodies going past. And I haven't done my determining yet. That's on the back side of the sun. That's on the front. You can tell by the direction they're headed. Oh, yes. Orbital technology is nice. So this is a good one. So let's copy this for you keeping an eye on the sun yourself. Okay, guys, yes, we could do it like this. You're flying to Sydney, well, you will catch more cosmic rays than usual. But if it's at night, you're not facing the sun. Calm your farm. Why is everybody looking for the end of the world rather than the beginning of their life? And this is a current image here, an actual live image of the sun. It only goes back 4 hours. Okay, so it's not going to be reflecting everything that went on down here, where a lot of the filaments, like there's a very active area of the sun right here. You can see. Get the zoom bit up here. You might can catch some of this. One of the very active area. That's a coronal hole right there. And some coronal holes could be right large. You can go from one end of the sun to the other. And whenever we see a coronal hole like about here and here, you're going to see an uptake in earthquakes, because space weather affects earth weather. Know this. And there's a big filament here going toward the back side of the sun. Yeah, this is a massive, isn't it? See it here? And that's actually going up and around towards another spot back here. So when this comes to this side here, you can see how these snap in filaments. Every time one of them snaps, you're going to see a bright flash like that. It's an X flare. And X flares are filaments snap, and pow, it releases the X-rays. And you could look at this under the helium spectrum filters and see a lot more activity of coronal holes in the hot and cool spots on the sun. See the loop lines here? Maybe I can do this. I know I can do this. Watch this. Let's see, I can get a little bit of a zoom in for you guys. So we can go over some of the basic graphs and terms. So you could check for yourself. Yeah, that was the go. Right, these things are actually coming from here, looping around out into space, and then pulled back down into this massive area of activity here. In the center of that is about where it's just coming around the rim of the sun towards us. There's a lot of activity here going on. Right, but you can see the magnetic flux lines or the plasma in the corona itself, which is the outer part of the sun here, where it's all glowing. And it can often be hotter than the sun itself. Yeah, this is an interesting world, isn't it, with science? And this is a look in a coronal hole. It's just a different temperature, but you can see next to it there's a spot that's running its magnetics, and it's trying to reach out into this one. Parts of this is reaching into that one. So when these snap, it causes an effect on all of these across here. Very often might see a quake across the sun as ripples when these things lose their magnetic line, and a tendril snaps, and we get a coronal mass ejection towards us. Yeah, that's the guilt. I'm not gonna show that. So back to the sun. I sent you a link to the dashboard. I'm going to send you a link to now Telesco's. This is their chronograph site. It talks about some of their imagery, and it will show some stuff, so I'll pop you a link to that. Here you go. I gave you 2 links so far. I'm going to give you magnetosphere. That's a definition of flux. The rate of fluids. The rate of flow of fluid particles or energy across a given surface of area, and they should throw in between 2 fixed points in a set period of time. It would be more accurate, and it would be what I would say. The presence of field of force in a region of space represented as a set of lines indicating the direction of the force. The density of the lines indicates the strength of the force. And may the force be with us always. And so we'll go to this one now. This shows a plasma density here, how fast it's going of the what was shot off the sun at us. Okay, so this is your basic explanation. The colors here represent different densities. So suddenly it went all white and black, man. You know you're in the big shit. Anytime you're getting up around here, around 20 RN centimeter squares. I have to look all this up again. Radiation squared newtons by centimeter cubed. But you can see when it hit here, we have a positive uptick in all the velocities on all the sensors. It's all matching like it should for an actual event. And that passed, by the way. If you look, this data here, this is projected path of a one that hasn't happened. Where I call in a lot of bullshit, because a lot of it's gone mostly to the sides of us here. See this here? It missed us completely. We get a normal amount of hit. It isn't that huge. It's not that huge. Right? And I see these a lot, and that'll be from a coronal hole as it's coming around. But what's on the backside here is a big concern to me, because I just showed you the filaments. But so you unplug appliances. You want to fry your computer, unplug the son of a bitch. You know, our systems are bent to make us lose electronics and buy more, I think. And so this one's is a fun one. And this, the last one that they did was at 9, looks like 1300, which would be UK, 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 9th. And this is what they say was going to happen today in England at that time. Right, so what time is it in England right now? I need to know. Local time, London, England. Right, so it's 1 hour away from this part of the graph here. Right, let's do this correct now. I want to see where it says. We'll be about here. It's 4 a.m. on the 12th. According to this, that thing is hit already. It's already passed. We've already had this event. Is anybody still worried about this? We have survived. You are still here. Your crypto is still being sold by the wind-up artists and all this. This is just some more graphs that you will look through that show various different wavelengths and densities and speeds and stuff and temperatures of the plasma. You see how when it hit, it was hotter? That'll also affect us. It'll warm the upper atmosphere a bit and then start making some very volatile storms. And there's a lot of electrics up in the upper atmosphere that can be drawn to ground. Positive will seek the negative. Yes, it's density. Boy, that was a flux there. Look at it. The heartbeat of the sun. Amazing. So you have homework to do. You will go to these sites. You will use these dashboards. And you will answer your own questions, because my gosh, I may be really good at a forecast for weather, but to go everywhere and everything will require hours and hours of time that I do not have. But this one here is fantastic, magnetosphere imagery that you got of one of the events, and how wonderfully our atmosphere and its magnetosphere reacted to protect us. And it's really what I wanted to show you guys. I didn't want to do a super long video of anything, and here's this one's got good information on it, but again, you'll read the official state line from this here, and when you hear, at least they're not saying like, oh my god, you know, to wind people up. Okay, so here's about some space weather, and I find space weather fascinating. It can cause the EMF look to your sky. And so to say there was a CME to D, I would go on here and look at NASA worldview and see what comes up in the clouds, and see if I've seen, they said this area of the world was about 11 o'clock when it hit, so we would have to see the EMF look in the actual sky, which I'm not. I am seeing it near the polar regions here. We can expect auroras today, very, very south, because of all this chemicals in the sky and the added electron, proton, positive electrons, the proton flux is with these chemicals is going to cause a plasma, and so the auroras are going to go very south in the northern hemisphere. Look at all those chemtrails. Would you look at that? Isn't that horrendous? Absolutely horrendous. And so some of these effects like this, I would expect to naturally occur today. And so I can't look at that and say that's automatically a bzzzt, right? So let's keep everything honest with ourselves. Do not give information for my agenda. I give information that shows the agenda. And right here's a lot of chemtrails, and they're putting up a lot of chemicals into the atmosphere that then can show up as where's the aurora, where the aurora and how far down it's going to go, and that's very far south for this time of year. But the tilt of the earth is changing, so the southern hemisphere would be the one to get most of it, I would say. And that one's just showing like you don't matter. There's so many space weather dashboards that you can use. This one here says yes, this is I'd say it was a little more than a minor storm has hit, and we have successfully survived it. And that's that one I've already passed you. And again, it's satellite. You can see the graphs and how to start to notice things. And this one here is where the absorption of the microwaves heavy. It's also when we see this, that's perfect for HAARP to kick a beam in here because all the energy's there. Right now it's low. And so you can follow this stuff as the danger of the head-on hit when the atmosphere or the magnetosphere comes closer to the planet, right? Because of the impacts and those lines of magnetic flux protecting us. We can also look down here, and you can see which base is likely to kick off. Like down here, the ice cube detector, it's perfect. It might go off today because that neutrino burst and the X-ray burst very well might occur simultaneously. So I'd be very interested if that fired. And if that fire, it puts a pulse all the way through the world. And if CERN's running at the same time, a major earthquake can occur by just triangulating, even running the cyclotron here in Melbourne, and all linked together through D-Wave computers can really cause some damage. So I haven't looked to see yet if Mimic is showing any pulses yet. I'm expecting to see like a mass KS look to Mimic today. And so I'll do that look right now. And then I'm going to click off here and start loading the weather screens. So let's have a look. It impacted this area here of the Pacific, right about here. And I'll be expecting to see something natural, right? I'm looking for natural. The day I stopped looking for natural, I went over to Cuckoo's Nest myself and forgot what truth is. Even higher dimensional beings occupying a 3D body must contend with the 3D reality or born into this active timeline. Act like it. Here we go. Let's see what else we got here over ice. Might as well have a look while I'm looking. Beam through here. Fiji has tried to beam out. Got a ship over here. I'm just doing my live sessions. So this is the area I'd be expecting most of the EMF action to happen. So, as the coronal hole grows and comes around a corner, we're going to have a wild space weather week. It's nothing we haven't contended with before after the great New York blackout they had because of the CME kicked off and wiped out almost the entire Niagara grid, plunging them into darkness. Lots of safety measures have been put in place, including warning systems to tell you when things are going to occur. So calm your farm. You're not even in that. Relax. You can't control that which you can't control, but knowledge into your head you can control. Seek the truth and the truth will find you. Seek a lie and you will live a life of lies. Big love, people. Stay safe. Peace.